Today we are checking out one of the more underrated features on the MPC, and that is the step sequencer. We'll be checking it out in MPC 3, which is the new OS for the firmware. And it hasn't changed much since MPC 2 or 1 or whatever else. The MPC I'm using in this video will be the MPC X, but you can use any MPC that you want. And if you want to help support this channel, check out the links in the description box. I do have masterclasses for all the MPCs. All of them updated, by the way, so you don't have to ask and say if it's updated or anything like that. I do not have the Key 61 Masterclass updated, just in case you wanted to know. So the first thing we'll do is just go into a new project, and then we'll go into Browse, and we'll select some drums or whatnot. So I'll use the latest and greatest by Chop Squad DJ for this, and I'll use this kit over here. I'll hit enter, and then it will automatically put it into a track. And then you'll see it right over here. So if I'm hitting a pass here, just pay attention to the bottom middle of the screen where the pads are. And then you'll see that I have all those sounds right here. So the main thing we want to do next is actually step sequence. So how would you do that? It's simple. You just go over here to menu, and then you will select step sequencer. If your menu does not look like this, you can always reset your menu to the very beginning of how it looked like by default by hitting this X icon. So if you have to do that, but we'll go to step sequence. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is you can set up all the things pretty much like if you was in like the main screen. You have your 4 bars right over here. By default is 4 bars. We'll just go to 1 bar. And then I'll just set it up for about 120. We'll just do something simple and boring or whatever. You have other things that you can set up too, but you can hit this cogwheel and it'll tell you could do no as played. You can step sequence by 1/16 if you want to. You could do smaller increments and stuff like that. So if you wanted to do 1/4 a bar or whatever else, you could do that. You could choose to allow the page to go and scroll, and it'll scroll automatically and allow you to step sequence live if that's your thing. Or you could turn off auto scroll so it doesn't do that. Okay. The next thing, you have TC right over here, and this is the main sequence as is. You have bars where you can set the bars, and you can select a pad. So if you was to press and hold this, and if I was to select this sound, then I'm step sequencing those sounds within the step sequencer. So I'm going to go ahead and go with a pad here. Let's go ahead and hit stop so that you don't worry about that. But yeah, you can set up time divisions. You can do other things too. You can do velocity, probability, ratchet, and then you also could do automation if you have pre-existing automation in your track and you just wanted to edit step sequence your stuff there like that. Okay, you can edit your automations that you have done. So now that we have this full view, we have the kicks. So if I was to hit a pad immediately, you don't hear the sound anymore, but you can go and select those kicks. And if I was to play it, we get 4 on the floor. Remember, this is 1 bar. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 1 bar. If you don't like anything, then you can press and hold shift and press clear, and it'll clear out the whole entire step sequence. So if I was to do that again, that's how I would bring it back in there. So let's say I wanted another sound. You just press pad select, that's right over here, and then hit that. And then now we can step sequence the actual snares. So we know the snares right here. So now you have sequenced the snares. Now, if you wanted to go back to a certain sound, just press and hold pad select, and then you can see the kicks that you just sequenced. So I want like a hi-hat or something like that. So I'll select the hi-hat right over here. And now we have a new page to work with. So I guess in theory, it'll be this. There we go. And now you have step sequenced your hi-hats. So if I want to go to another sound, let's say we want that in there. Right here. And so now we have sequenced the hi-hat or an open hat in here. And if you're wondering, yes, you can step sequence your, I don't know why you would want to, but some people would probably. You got weirdos out there. You can step sequence your sample chops. So if you wanted to do that in that manner, then you can. So let's do that. I'll go into the browser and then I'll select some samples that we have over there at 16levels.com. I found this sample right here and we'll just make it work for what it is. And we'll just load it into the sample pool. So it's loaded into the sample pool. And now we can just go on the sample edit from here. If you are going to be hard-headed and step sequence your sample chops, then I recommend maybe using region or BPM chopping. You know, make it a little easier on yourself so that you know what you're going to chop up. And, you know, do all the things that I would normally tell you, basically. So I'll just make it a little easier on me, even though I don't prefer this. And I have it in 4 chops. Or actually, since it has a little bit more variety, I'll do 8. Pretty sure you know the rest of the vibes. All you have to do is just press and hold shift and then choose whatever type of conversion you want to do. So I'm over here on track number 2, which has all my chops. I'll simply just press menu and then get back into the step sequencer. And then you just choose whatever you want to be in your step sequencer. So what I want to do in this instance here is, seeing that this needs to be about 2 bars, I will actually go over here into the main, and then I choose the pencil sign, and we'll make it a little further. We'll double the length so that now we have something that we can work with. Go right back in there like you would per usual. And now I'll just hold shift. And then I'll just enter stuff in. Since we're working on 4 different pages technically, because this only shows 1 bar. It's 16 bars within a step sequence. I believe that's the right count, right? Or 16 steps. You know, so that's 1 bar basically. So we'll go to bar 1, enter this in, then we'll go to like bar 2, then select a pad. And then we'll edit that in. That needs to be on this right here. We'll do that on the 1. And then we'll go to the next bar over here and we'll enter that same chop in. Then we'll select the pad. Let's select this pad right over here. And then we'll just put it on this pad right over here. So we'll experiment with that. We're on page 3. So let's go ahead, go to page 4 and enter that in, and perhaps enter that in, and then what do we have? So this is going to be interesting. So that's why it's a little hard to keep up with everything. So that's why I wouldn't do exactly that, because then you would just be kind of working counterintuitive to whatever you're trying to do. If you don't like anything, I guess you could just always hit the erase button on your MPC and then make sure that you have that track highlighted. We'll choose erase all, and then nothing will be in there but the drums, because the drums are on track 1, and that's how we step sequenced it. And you can also scroll back to your track too. So if you wanted to look at your track and see what you have entered or whatever, then this is a easier way to do it, I guess. So you just go over here, select your kick, and do that. But what we're gonna do is just enter everything in. So we're on bar 1. We can just go ahead and enter stuff in, and then let's see what we got. So on this track right here, track number 1, on this pad, we want this pad right here to have like a reverb. So, like I was talking about in my mixing video or whatnot, you can do this separately. So what you need to do is go into your pad mixer. So we'll select that snare. We'll add an effect over here on this particular track. If you have to go and look back at which track it was, you can see it's right here. So we'll go into the effect. We'll add a reverb. And from the reverb over here, we'll just go ahead and enter it and, you know, make some adjustments. Now that we have messed with the mix, we can do the thing that I want to do, which is automation. So I'll go back into the main. So in order to get like this snare to be automated, you will have to hit this right over here, the automation icon, which is at the top right side of your screen. And then you'll go right back into your effect for that. So let's go into the pad mixer. It's easier on the MPCX because it's just one button, but you just go over here. We're gonna automate the mix. So we want it to come in just slightly in between. Just hit play start. And we're gonna let it rock. Now, the reason why I did the automation here, let's go back in the main, turn automation off. You got to get into the habit of that. The main reason why I wanted to do that is so when we go back into the step sequencer, which is a button on your MPCX, you could just go to step sequencer. Now that we go over there, we'll just go and press select here, and then we'll choose to go and do some automation. So as you can see, there's parameters that have been automated. So let's look at it. And it's gonna scroll through. You can see air reverb. So in theory, if I wanted to mess with that, I would just go over here to the bars, and perhaps I wanted to be wetter at a certain point. We can step sequence that and then drier faster. So let's listen to it. You hear that? Now it's cutting off faster, in which I like that aspect of that. And, you know, if I wanted to make it wet at the end, you can. And you can erase, you know, whatever you might have messed up. If you are annoyed with the automatic page roll, well, here's an instance where you would turn it off. So if you wanted to just like get rid of some stuff, by the way, you can, I believe you can go over to, well, I guess not. Well, let's go over here, go to the bar, press play start, and then it stays on that screen, so you can just kind of play with it as it goes. Oh yeah, you can delete stuff by hitting the blue. So if maybe you want the snare not to catch all of that reverb, there you go. Or maybe you want this wet one right here to get really wet real fast. Pause. There. Now you notice that there is this right here. It allows you to scroll and see more of your automation or more of the step sequence. You also can flip the steps or whatnot. So now that we have the steps flipped, it will look like this. So it chooses to flip the way it wants. You can always hit undo if you don't like it. So I'll undo that. What we will do is go into one of the steps right here and then choose flip. And now you have some weird stuff on this page. You see that? Now that's pretty cool, right? So that's what flip steps would do. I actually like that on this page. You know, maybe if it was an 8-bar, I would like it a little bit more, but you get the general idea. It will come up with ideas for you, basically. And it'll be based off of, let's perhaps just do this right here. If you was going to probability, let's make up some probabilities here and use flip. And with probability, you got to keep in mind that the value of the probability matters. So if the probability was lower and whatever the sound that you're on is being expressed in that manner, then it will either play or it won't play. And let's let it roll through one more time. Let's see if it'll play at this probability. And it didn't, but we can always just bring it up a little bit more, make a minor adjustment. And let's see if it'll play this time. Okay, so it didn't play that time, so that's probability. Let's say we want to use a ratchet right over here. Let's go ahead and ratchet that sound. Let's lower the ratchet here. You see what I'm saying? And the coolest thing about this is you don't need to use the step sequencer to enter stuff in. You could go about your workflow like you normally would. And if I was to go into main over here and then go into arrangement and then access the arrangement in itself, or access the piano roll or the grid, you can see all the stuff that is entered right here. So if you prefer to mess with stuff within the step sequencer after the fact, you can do it that way. Not many people ask me this, but I've seen people show off other features that, they always say, well, the MPC doesn't have a step sequencer, and it does. It's always had a step sequencer since 1.0. So yeah, it has a lot of use case features, especially with automation. I used to use the step sequencer to edit automation and stuff like that. Now in 3.0, of course, you have a visual arranger where you can mess with it, similar to like a DAW. So it has less use than it did in the past. But if you want to work in a certain style, or you just don't like the finger drum or anything like that, well, the step sequencer is there for you.